Hi, how are you? I was just
Whoa,
wondering.
whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't want to buy anything. I'm tired of buying stuff. I'm not donating
No,
anything.
no, no. I just wanted to talk about sports.
Oh, well, then why you didn't say so? This is game time. Hello, folks, and welcome to Game Time. I'm your host, Carl Johnson. And I'm here with a very distinguished guest, Jeff Aubrey. Now, I read your bio, but I would like for you to tell me about yourself.
Sure, thanks, Carl, man. I'm really happy to be here. So, like you said, Jeff Aubrey. I grew up in Uniondale, East Elmhurst, and played at Long Island Lutheran High School. Won a state championship my junior year. Went on to play at Cornell University. Did 4 years there, and then was lucky enough to find a professional career, and that took me overseas. Played in a number of different countries. Puerto Rico, Spain, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Argentina, Uruguay, Mexico, DR. I mean, I was all over, and eventually the NBA D League, which is now the NBA G League. So I played overseas for about 18 years, and then brought my family out east here, and resettled, went back to school, got a master's degree from Columbia, and then found myself in an internship at the NBA that turned into a full-time gig in player development. So I was able to work in player development, kind of focusing on the off-court growth and development of current and former NBA players. One of the programs I got to lead, which was my favorite, was the rookie transition program. I got to usher in a whole new generation of NBA stars, who many of whom now have signed 9-figure deals. So it was cool seeing them make that transition.
Yeah.
And then now I am the executive director of the G League Players Union. It's called the Next Gen Basketball Players Union.
Okay.
And I'm moving them into the next stage, working on a collective bargaining agreement for the next couple years, and then building a structural base that hopefully will sustain them over the course of the league and the next few seasons.
Oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know you were that deeply involved with the NBA, because I used to see you like from time to time. I was like, hold up, the draft is there. They're sitting back in the green room, and you see players there, and I was like, yo, I know that guy. I know that guy. I actually know him.
Yeah.
But to know that you are like more deeply involved with the NBA and helping these young players try to reach their goals and their dreams is very important. Now, I have a couple of questions to ask you. One is, how do you get involved with basketball as a youth? And, I've been away from basketball for 6 years. I've seen a lot that's happening since my 6 years away from the game of basketball. I see the environment has changed. So can you elaborate on like some of the state of the basketball? First of all, start with yourself and how it's different from when you played to now, where I know you have a son who's going into high school, right? Correct?
Yeah, and 2 girls. Yeah.
And 2 girls. Yeah. And tell me what's the difference and what's similar?
Sure. So I started playing when I was 9, 10 years old, mostly because my boys were playing, my 2 best friends. So, we're in the backyard, we're at the park playing, and, they were good. Like, they, pretty athletic kids, both of them. One of them was my size. And, and I was definitely like not as advanced as they were physically or in the game. So the challenge was, we're playing all the time, playing 21 like all the kids did. And I never won, ever. And then one day, me and my guys, they saw how down I used to get about losing, and they let me win a game. And that drove me crazy. Like you talk about, I was a competitor, but the fact that they had to let me win, I couldn't have that. So, I kind of dedicated myself to becoming a better player. So lots of time on my own, working on different shots, working on my moves, doing those kind of things, watching the game, studying the game. In those days, you're talking about in the 80s, there were no trainers. Like, you couldn't pay somebody to come train you. Like, that didn't happen, right? You'd be lucky if there was an OG at the park that would tell you 1 or 2 things, and then, even rarer if you actually listened to them. So, besides, playing with my dad sometimes or playing with my older brother, like, I was just trying to figure it out. My mom saw how hard I was working, and one of the gym teachers at my elementary school recommended the Lehigh summer camps as a place to go. They had basketball camps that everybody in Long Island has gone to. So that's where I started, like, and understood, like, hey, how many people were out there working on their games, and then kind of where I stood in that. A couple summers at Lehigh summer camps, really helped in terms of my progress. And then I'm playing for the Salvation Army team in Hempstead, which, you know, is legendary too, because you're talking about Dr. J came out of that.
Don
you know,
Ryan.
Yeah,
Don
right?
Ryan.
Yeah,
Don
Don Ryan.
Ryan.
So I played there, you know, travel team. Shoot, we came to Sag Harbor one time and played against the youth hoop team that was here. So, you know, we go, you know, kind of all around the city and playing tournaments and local stuff. But, you know, remember those days, like if you were good enough to make the team, that was it. You didn't need to do anything else, right? We'd pile into the back of the coach's station wagon and drive wherever and play and come home.
And stay with other players.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like obviously, and this is the interesting part, is that the state of basketball is in a place where people have monetized youth sports. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. Like training, camps, AAU programs, they're all over the place, right? When we were kids, there was what? Maybe 2 in Long Island, 5 in the city that were reputable. I mean, you could play in park tournaments, but in terms of like going to other states, like there was nobody doing that. And if they did do it, they had sponsorship that was outside a church or a community center or things like that. Now everybody just, you know, puts their own thing together and, you know, they're charging, and that pay for play situation makes things very different.
Yeah, because when I was young, we had 2 things. We had Biddy League, which is what you were probably used to with Don Ryan. And then we had the CYO, which each church had like a team. And we would travel from Catholic school to Catholic school to play, or the Biddy League, where when you did go away and you stay overnight, you stayed with a guest family, you know, so it was like, you know, cost effective for a lot of us. But my mother didn't have to put out so much money for me to play basketball. And now today, I'm like, wow, you guys are paying $150 for a trainer, you know, things like that, going to camp, then being part of a AAU team, which is cost effective too. Like that costs money as well, because they're traveling all over the place. Now, how about your son? Is he like, you know, is he involved in AAU or club team?
Yeah. So I tried to take the lead, like so I was on a trip before COVID. I was in Paris, and Del Curry and I were like hanging out, spending some time talking. So I asked Del like how he managed his sons coming up. And he said, look, the AAU system was tough for them because they were not physically developed. And, you know, at that age, the biggest, strongest, fastest kids are the best players, right? It doesn't stay that way because everybody catches up. But at that time, that's who the best players were. And they weren't big, strong, or fast. So he said he would put them into a tournament just so that they could see what the other kids were like. And then he would pull them out and keep them local and give them time to physically develop, let their confidence build, and then, you know, kind of did more of an organic approach to growing their talent. And obviously it's Del Curry, so who better to teach you to shoot than, you know, one of the best three-point shooters in the league, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So they had that opportunity. So for me, that's kind of how I kept it, try to keep it with my kids in terms of like what they're doing. You know, really like the organic way of growing and learning the game. You know, I'm able to train them, you know, because I have tons of experience, and, you know, I you know, teach myself the things I didn't actually do. Like I came from a stage where bigs got their butt in the paint, right? You know, you worked on post moves. Yeah, so that's the things I grew up learning how to do, and then I've taught myself the other parts of now a more guard-oriented game to make sure that, you know, that his skill level was on par with what he was going to need to do. And my son, you know, is still waiting on a growth spurt. So whereas I was always one of the biggest kids in my class, that's not his situation.
Yeah, right.
So, and it's fine. Like he's a much better player at this age than I was, and it's not even close. So, you know, he's coming along. And then I have my daughters who, you know, very different. My daughters who are both the big, you know, tallest in their classes. So I train them more like bigs. So I try to stretch them and make sure they can handle and shoot, but they're more comfortable doing the things I did well, rebounding, blocking shots, scoring near the basket. So I try to lean into the things that make them feel confident, which ultimately is the most important thing, is that they're confident going into the next stage.
Yeah, I think that's very important going forward, like with a lot of parents. I think some parents take that fact that a coach doesn't like really truly look after their kids, where I think for me, from a coach's point of view, I want the best player out there. I want the kid to reach his goal. And then some parents just like get in the way. I'm like, just relax. Let them just, like, I guess you use the perfect word, organic. You know, because growing up organically, that's how we learn. We learn from the OGs up there, and they would beat up on us, and then they would tell us, you know, so they would break us down, but then they would build us up. So then it's like, and don't be afraid to come out there the next day, because you're going to get the same lesson. Hopefully you learn from your mistake and your lesson. and earn their respect. You know, so I think that's a great analogy where you say it should be more organic. You know, because I think as parents, even like outside of basketball, we kind of plan everything too much for our kids, and the creativity is like kind of
agreed. Yeah,
you know, it goes down. And so I really like that. Now, as far as like with the NBA, you talk about the union. I don't know how much depth you can get into it, but like, you know, but did the G League always have a union, or they didn't?
So no. So you know, I played in the G League 22 years ago when it started. So 01, you know, I was overseas already. The opportunity came up. You know, the NBA started the NBA Development League, or at the time it was the NBDL. So there were 8 teams, all in the Southeast. So I went to a training camp, and you talk about 01. So every great college player who was not an NBA player from, you know, the years of maybe 97 to 2000 were in this camp. I mean, it was amazing. I looked at the list and I was like, how did I get on this list? You know, it was tough. And for 3 days, we went in there and we were just killing each other, because we were all certain, like, this is how we're getting to the league. You know, so I had some early teammates and battles with some guys like Chris Anderson, right, Birdman. He was the first call-up. So he was in that training camp, and here we are, we're working on post moves, right? So one-on-one in the post. So he's guarding me, and I don't know him. I've never seen him before. He had to be like 19 years old, something around there. Like, he was a young kid.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I took 2 dribbles into him, banged him into him, and he just kind of let me. So I was like, all right. So I went and shot a hook shot, and he went up and pitched it. I was like, whoa. You know, I mean, so I was like, hold up. All right. Okay. You got a little something with you. All right. Yeah. So then we come up again for the next one, and I did the same thing. Backed him down. He let me. This time, what'd I do?
Open up.
I pump faked. Boy, he flew over me, dunked it. So I did that to him the 3 next times. But NBA scouts remembered only the first one. That's it. They remembered him pitching my shot. You know, so you know, he was the first call up. He had athleticism. He could run. He had an understanding of who he was.
Okay.
So he ain't out there trying to do anything that wasn't in his skill set. He was good at running, blocking shots, and rebounding. That's it. So that's what he stuck to. And the NBA is like that. Like, you have an NBA skill, and you have to know what you get paid to do. So you'll see NBA players who are playing a role, and they're stars in their role. I am the best rebounder. I'm the best, you know, on-ball defensive player on the perimeter. I'm the best post defender. Like, they get paid for a very specific role, and that's what they focus on, and that's how they stay getting paid and stay in the league. And then obviously you got those otherworldly players who get paid to do everything, right? So, you know, they get paid to get 20 every night. They get paid to create offensive opportunities for other players. You know, it's those kind of players that are they're incredible. They're like not from this planet in terms of watching them play. But, you know, there's a lot of role players that could be a lot of people. Could be guys who are currently in the G League, could be guys who are currently overseas. They're just really good at their roles. So sometimes when you see guys talking about, oh, this guy, he should be playing somewhere. Like, no, he shouldn't. You know why? Because A, at his size or athleticism, he wouldn't be able to play like that against people who are, you know, who have superior size and athleticism. Or B, he doesn't understand the role he'd have when he went to the NBA, right? So there's guys in the G League currently that average 25 points a game. But an NBA team is not bringing any of those guys in to score 25 points a game.
Right.
They're coming in to play a role. And if they don't yet understand that role, they still need more development so that they can figure out about the game, the things that you and I have learned over a lifetime. But right, they have a small window. They're in their 20s. And once you get to the second half of your 20s and you haven't figured out what that role is, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
you know,
that's interesting. That's a short window.
It's a short window. Remember, they're paying for potential.
Yes.
Right? They're not trying to teach no 28, 29-year-old how to play the game they need them to play.
Right.
Right? You learn that thing before you're 25 and you have a shot. After 25, boy, that's tough. It's really tough. Yeah.
Now, always, you know, there's always debates about this. Like, is the NBA better off now than they were, like, say, the 90s? Everybody's trying to compare. And I just want to get your take on kind of compare, like, eras, like the 90s compared to the early 2000s to now, you know, and then even the 80s and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to compare because obviously I grew up on 80s basketball. So, you know, I'm watching Magic and Larry. I'm watching Mike in his early years. You know, I'm watching Kareem. I'm watching Patrick Ewing. Like, these are the guys I grew up watching.
Yeah.
But the era comparison is difficult because it's like a ladder. It's an evolutionary ladder.
Okay.
The game evolved in every decade, every year. And without the 80s, you don't get the basketball we saw in the 90s. Without the 90s, you don't get to see what we had in the 2000s. So that evolution makes it hard to compare, right? I mean, I'll start real simple. The guys who were athletic and dunking and running and Chuck Taylors, and most incredible athletes in history, because I put on Chuck Taylors, I can't even run across the street, So, so I have utmost respect for those guys. But I always think like the guys who we see doing these amazing things are inspired by guys who they watched, right? So, you can start right now with LeBron and Kobe, who are inspired by watching Mike, who was inspired by watching Magic, who was inspired by watching Dr. J, who was inspired by watching Connie Hawkins, who was inspired by, like, you can go down the list, where they're all inspiring the next generation. So having a GOAT conversation is really tough, because in that inspiration and in that, for me, it's like art. Basketball is art. So if we're doing a greatest conversation and it's based on stats, that's pretty easy, right? Who averaged the most points? Well, I mean, that's easy, right? Well, if we're doing it on wins, who won the most? Who has the most rings? Again, easy, right?
Right.
But when you get to like who the greatest player of all time is, and it has nothing to do with either of those conversations, then it's all like, who inspires you? Who inspired you? For me, it's Magic. I've never seen anybody play with that much joy. And I just always wanted to play with that much joy, connecting people on the court, connecting people on my team, and inspiring people to laugh and jump up out their seats. Like, that's what means everything to me for basketball. Now, who inspired you?
Hey, man, Mike.
Right, there you go.
Everybody wanted to be like Mike. But I love Mike, so I watched him through like his days at UNC.
Right.
Where I'm like, watch him grow as a freshman. Then all of a sudden, his sophomore year, I was like, wow, I've never seen anybody do anything like. I mean, Dr. J would fly, but Mike was doing something different. Like, like you said, he was inspired. And then all of a sudden, when you talk to Mike about who inspired him, he'll say somebody, like Skywalker, David Thompson. But Dr. J was always in the back of his mind. And I always said to people, I'm like, as far as the evolution, I would say Mike was probably the worst thing that could ever happen to basketball, because everybody wanted to do those things, and I'm like, you can't do those things. Absolutely. You can't do what Mike did. I think, like, I sat back one year. It was 1983. I'll never forget this. And I listened to an announcer said this. He said, the game of basketball would change forever. It was a game between Louisville Doctors of Dunks versus Phi Slammer Jam.
Right, wow, yeah.
And there were so many dunks in that game, and so many athletes out there, Clyde Drexler, Benny Anders, and then you had Dow. No, Dow Griffin wasn't on the team, but they had the McCray brothers and this and that, and it was just dunk after dunk. If you ever get a chance, just go back and see that game. It was unbelievable. And I said, wow, he was right. That changed the game. Then here come Michael Jordan. And then now you're talking about Magic comes, 6'9" point guard. And then now we're talking about Del Curry. Steph Curry, who's shooting threes, and everybody think they can shoot threes. I'm like,
everybody walks in the gym, first shot they take is from 35 feet. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah, they run into the three-point line instead of running to the rim, which what we're saying, like a layup is a layup. 2 points are 2 points, but now everybody wants to be the three-point shot. So, I look at that state of the game, but I also, I tell young players, I'm like, NBA is just a different game. Than high school.
Absolutely.
Totally different game. I say, you see the guys isolating because they can take that advantage. There's nobody in high school that can just isolate, because, first of all, you got zone, you got everything else. So it's just interesting to see the involvement, the evolve of the game, how it just evolved from that to that. And
But it's interesting, is that right? The NBA game only fits because they're so good. Like, if we went to a playground and tried to play an NBA style, it would look terrible. We're passing up layups for three-pointers when nobody can shoot. We're isolating one-on-one when guys can't score every time. It's entirely based on the fact that they're so talented and surrounded by guys who barely ever score, who average 4 points a game, 5 points a game, If you give them an open three-pointer, they will make it.
Yeah.
So you can't leave them. So that's why isolation works, because there's spacing and rules adjusted so that a guy who is talented enough to score can get to his spot and he's going to make that shot every time. I always think about somebody like Paul Pierce. Yeah. Paul Pierce gets his foot to the free throw line, it is a bucket every time without question, because that's what NBA players do. They know how to get to their spots. They're not working to hit a shot everywhere. They're working to be able to hit a shot here, and you can't keep me from going to one of those spots. And that's how it is. So getting to your spot is what NBA scorers do.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question before we take a break. And then I have another serious question to ask you after the break. I ask, most guys like look on an NBA roster and they say, oh, that guy is horrible. He's the 12th guy on the team.
Right.
What is he doing on the roster? And I try to tell these kids, I'm like, do you realize how good he is?
Right.
Like he could come into an open gym and cook everybody, cook any of your like so-called best players in the open gym. Yeah. But they just don't realize how good that 12th player really is.
I mean, the 12th player, the 12th man, 15th man, two-way, G League, like all of those guys are incredible basketball players. They dominated in college, they dominated in high school. So, you know, that conversation is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, like that's why I say, like, for me, it's always like the first 6 or 7 guys on every team are out of this world. Like, there's no argument to say that they're not incredible. Then the next, you know, say 4 guys, also incredible, probably a step down. And then the last couple guys could be anybody that's playing in the G League, that's playing overseas for the most part, right? But all of those guys would walk into any Lifetime Fitness, LA Fitness, you know, midday run and be unstoppable, like unstoppable. I mean, look, I was a rim running big. I didn't shoot threes ever. I didn't basically barely ever shot elbow jump shots. Like that was a rarity. I was paid to rebound, block shots, and dunk. And then, you know, that's what I did. So, you know, I was a great defender, and that's what got me paid. And when I go into pickup games now, I like have to make it fun. So I don't just do those things because I've been doing those all my life. I shoot jump shots, I shoot threes, I turn myself into Magic Johnson, and I run the point. And I can do that in pretty much any pickup game ever at my age right now because I know how to play, because the level is so different, which is why we went back to that conversation. Well, he should be playing somewhere. If he's in these pickup games, no, he should not be playing any. He's playing exactly where he should be playing because at the next level, the guys who do what he does are 7 inches taller than him. Right, and that's a huge difference. You know, and that a lot of time is what the difference is between, you know, between guys who make it and guys who don't.
Well, we're going to take a break now and take a short break, and we'll be right back after this break. Thank you.
All right.
Experience Union Burger Bar, located at 40 Bowdoin Square, Southampton, New York, offering the American favorite food, the Great Burger. Come join us.
Welcome back to Game Time with Carl Johnson. I hope you enjoyed the first part of our segment. We're here with Jeff Aubrey, and he's enlightened me on a lot of great things, and I'm gonna keep it going. So I got a personal question for Jeff. All right, now, you said you played 22 years. Who was probably some of the best players you played against that somebody might not even know? But.
Man, you know, so Carlos Arroyo, he and I started together in Puerto Rico in 1998.
Okay.
He's a little younger than me, a year or two younger than me. And we went on and won together, you know, 5 championships in 7 years. Like you're talking about, he was a bad boy. I mean, you know, tough guard, always tough. And then developed, obviously, ended up in the league. Jose Picolín Ortiz, who was also on that team, like taught me everything about how to be a pro. I mean, he, you know, played until his early 40s and was a monster. Super strong, 6'10", probably 270 pounds, could put everything off the glass, on the block. He used to give Tim Duncan fits in Olympic Games. Like, I mean, he was that good. You know, played with Gary Payton in Oregon and a couple years in the NBA.
Okay.
You know, some guys that, you know, that for me were super tough. Larry Ayuso played at USC. He's a Bronx kid, Puerto Rican. You know, if you go back and look at 2004 when they beat the US, he was cooking them. There was a number of guys. I think I played with everybody on that team. That played on that team, and you know, some amazing basketball players. Again, maybe not the size to be dominant at an NBA level, but understanding how to play, knowing how to win, which is a thing I learned in Puerto Rico, like how to win, how to play to win, right? There's like playing to play and there's playing to win. And one of my coaches that we won all those championships with used to tell me, he was like, you don't get paid to play because anybody can play. You get paid to win. And when you approach the game that way, it's very different in terms of how you operate, how you work with your teammates, how the kind of shots you take, the kind of shots you want your teammates to take.
Right.
That changes everything. When you play pickup nowadays with kids, they're playing to play. So that means they're shooting step back threes from 35 feet, and some of that stuff, like if I'm playing with them, and I play with them as much as I can.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I asked them, are we playing to play or are we playing to win? Because if we're playing to win, then that ball got to go inside. Then you got to cut off of it. Let's take good shots, open shots that you can make. Let's not play one-on-one while everybody else stands around and watches you take the dumbest shot I can imagine, because that's not playing to win.
Yeah.
And for me, like that's the biggest difference when you get to a professional level. Everybody's playing to win. So we're going to take the shots that have the best chance of going in, not the one you feel like taking because you saw it on TV or you had it in your imagination. There's only a couple guys who can do that and still be successful.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you said that because, when I had open gym, I'm like, all right, guys. And I'm saying in my head because, like you said, like I try to make it organic as possible. I just take mental notes, and I'm like, okay, guys, man, pass the ball, cut, move. Don't just, take a bad shot. And there's one kid told me, like, Coach, I can make that shot all the time. I'm like, you haven't, so just pass the ball, man. So I have to sometimes get like, you haven't made it yet. Like, so come on, pass the ball, man. Like, move, cut, get your teammates involved. So that's interesting you say that the difference in between playing to play and playing to win. And I hope a lot of high school kids and college kids get to learn that. Because I also come back to this. Like I watched UNC, which is like one of my favorite. It is my favorite college team. They come back with 4 starters, and then a transfer, and they didn't make the NCAA.
Right.
Because I think what happened with them, that particular team, they were playing to play.
Absolutely.
They weren't playing to win,
right.
And therefore they missed out. Because how can you go from being in a championship game and then not even making it at all with 90% of your scoring and rebounding coming back? So
look, if you look at my stats over my career, everywhere I played, they're going to be unremarkable, right? I never averaged 20 points a game. Right. Rebounds, I was really good at rebounds. I led most leagues in block shots. But what I was good at is understanding what a team needed to be successful and then doing it. So if I had a shooter, knockdown shooter, I'm going to tell him, look, I'm going to come my way anytime we're on an offensive end. I'm going to set a screen for you every time. And I'll tell him, look, the first time my man jumps out, give it to me. I'm going to dunk it. My man will never help again. And then after that, shoot every ball because I'm going to knock your man out. You're going to have a wide open look, and I want you to be confident. Now that takes some sort of emotional, kind of maturity and intelligence because I know my stats are going to look, I'm going to get that first dunk, maybe a couple of offensive rebounds. Maybe I'll end up, ideal game, 9 points, 12 rebounds, something like that, right? But my man's going to have 30 because I've been setting screens for him all day and we're going to win. And that's more important to me, right? And once you're focused like that, that's how you win. That's how you learn to win. That's how you bring people along with you. So my stats being unremarkable doesn't matter because I have 9 championships as a pro. 9 in 18 years that I played.
That's half your career.
And so that's what matters. And I played in 12 finals, right? So it's like that level of success is why I was able to play for so long because I understood that about myself. There's a lot better players than me that couldn't last because if they weren't getting the ball, they're not going to play defense. If they're not getting plays called for them, they're not doing anything. They're not running around setting screens. They're going to sit and pout. And, I've had lots of those guys that I've had to play against. And I would use it against them. Like guys better than me, give me 25 every time we played them, but they could never win. And I'd tell them, I'd be like, man, believe they're not giving you the ball? That's crazy. Man, I'm talking them into it. That's crazy. You in NBA, they're not going to give you the ball here? That's crazy. He's like, yeah, man, I'm out of here. I'm not playing. And then we win, Meanwhile, I'm collecting all the rebounds because he's pouting, So it's those kind of situations that really teach you, what the difference is, how good teams win and how good teams can lose because they start thinking about their own stats and their situation, who gets the glory. But, what KG said it, right? In Boston, that championship they won, he said, it's amazing what you could do when nobody cares who gets the credit. And when you play that way together, who's going to stop you? It's tough, you know.
I think most
but for
champs-
me, I learned that from point guards, right? I had Carlos Arroyo, who I mentioned.
Yeah.
I had Bobby Joe Hatton, who another guy on the national team. I had, you know, Omar Cook.
Ooh.
I had Terrell McIntyre.
Yeah.
Like, I had Smush Parker.
Yes.
Like those are all guys I played with that were amazing, that taught me so many things, and were so talented. It was incredible. Like, you know, a guy like Smush, for everything they say, we'd be in practice, and I was on the second team, and we'd be kicking their ass. And he would decide at point game, all right, we're not going to lose. And he'd come down and hit 3 threes in a row, and that was game. Like, it was those guys who could, like, not just manage the game, but, like, exert their will. Omar Cook, like I told you, I wasn't great, but he would spoon feed me baskets, easy. And then, like, if I miss a pass or bumble it, he'd be like, all right, no problem, don't worry, I'll come right back to you, I got you. Like, he was younger than me and teaching me how to play.
Yeah.
Terrell McIntyre, super tough, like tough as nails. You know, if he was a couple inches shorter, he would have been a starting point guard in the NBA. A couple inches taller,
right?
But, like, left-handed, could shoot, could go attack the rim, like super athletic. You know, his size was the only thing. But again, like, taught me how to win, taught me how to be a part of a team that's going to win. You know, so it's those kind of things you learn and you pick up from people that then you carry with you. And the things I try to teach kids now when I'm able to, you know, get in the gym with them.
All right. So let's talk about this. Your union, you're going to be executive union, right? A lot of people balk at this situation. They're saying, well, guys are now in the NBA are building super teams.
Right.
And they want to play with that team, that team. Now, is it, so, you know, like old school guys, I hear the old school guys complain about it. It's like, well, you know, I stayed with my team for so long and I didn't need to go anywhere. I stayed there. You know, they say, Patrick Ewing, he could have joined Michael Jordan. He could have did this and that. But I don't think it was that loose, was it?
No.
You know, it wasn't that loose.
No, I mean, it's different now, right? And it's the CBA agreements that have changed, that players are more empowered now than they've ever been. And, you know, I'm a union guy, so player empowerment is everything for me, right? Just like anybody, you know, we know can choose where they want to work, players should have the right to go wherever they want to go, right? So if my contract is up or if I'm not happy there, like, I should be able to force my way out, particularly if I'm a kind of asset that's going to get you a number of good players. If it's not working out, it's not working out. But for me, like, you know, we go to the park and we want to get on. We're going to pick the best players.
Oh, yeah.
And probably they're going to be our guys, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So I don't see anything wrong with that, much less like older players who are now commentators. And, you know, I'm not calling any names, but at the end of everybody's career, they go championship chasing and they end up on teams with, you know, current superstars trying to do the same thing.
Right.
So for me, LeBron and D Wade, who essentially started this, super team thing, right, in Miami, like, they coordinated a strategy where they were all going to play together to win championships. What is wrong with that? They're sacrificing their stats and some degree of money so that they can go win. Like, so it's contrary to everything we think about in terms of, like, players being selfish. They want to win. For me, that's the ultimate team guy who's going to say, I can get less shots, I can get less money because I want to win. So this is what I'm going to do. So for me, you know, like, fair is fair. No, we're trying to win. And if you're playing to win, like you said, as opposed to just playing to play, you can stay where you are, keep averaging 30, keep losing. Why is that admirable for us? What's admirable about that? Much less the teams will do whatever they want with you when it's time to make themselves better. And they don't care if your kids are in school. They don't care if your family has roots in the community. They don't care any of that. When they're ready to be done with you, they are done with you. So a player, for me, has to make the same choice, the same business decision, what's best for his career, what's best for his opportunity, what's best for his mental health. If being in this team is stressing you out because you piggybacking them and you can't get where you want to get, it's time to move.
Oh, okay. Because, so I have a cousin, and him and I always get into this debate. And it's not really a debate for me, because he always say, well, KD should have never left OKC. He was one victory away. And I'm like, I think he made that decision based on what he wanted to do, whether he was going to join Steph Curry and Draymond Green. He wanted to do that. And maybe he went there not only to have a great chance of winning the championship, but also learning how to win a championship. And he's like, and then I said, well, LeBron did it. And he's like, no, it's different. It's different. I'm like, it's not different, you know? And even when you brought up the Boston Celtics, KG, Paul Pierce,
Right.
and Ray Allen.
Right.
They all teamed up together. So that really actually was the first big three.
Right, absolutely.
You know?
I mean, if you want to say the first, because think about what that Boston Celtics team was like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right? Who was there? Bird, McHale, Parrish, right? DJ, Dennis Johnson. Remember how good he was in Seattle?
DJ was really good. Really good. And think about this, unfortunately, I don't know how they got this way, but they had Len Bias.
Right.
Would
Would have been right there.
He would have been right there. So when you see in the Boston dynasties, they were just powerful.
Right.
And the Lakers team weren't that too far back.
No,
either.
the Lakers team the same thing.
Yeah.
Magic, Kareem, Worthy, come
McAdoo,
on.
all
right,
those guys.
Right.
So,
McAdoo, you had super teams all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, the interesting thing for me is, and this is where the disparity is. Who was pulling the strings when those super teams were created, including the Celtics one with KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen? Who made that happen? The GM, right?
Right.
The team made it happen. Who made it happen when it was LeBron? Who made it happen when it was KD? Now the players are making it happen, and that's where the public opinion starts to get in there, because you have these young brothers making choices about their career that that are entirely up to them, and that succeed or fail because of a choice they made. So their empowerment is, for me, again, the key to this whole thing. It's what matters most to me, but it probably is what enrages most, average fans, because having these young brothers, shift the balance of power in the league the way they see fit is not typically a popular, thing to see.
Okay. Wow. But I hope my cousin's gonna look at this podcast and telling you reason why. But Jeff, I really truly appreciate you being my first guest here, my debut as Game Time with Carl Johnson. I hope to have you back, hopefully after the All-Star game, or after this in tournament. You know what? Before we stop that, can you explain to the audience what this in tournament Cup is all about?
The in-season tournament? Sure.
Yeah, in-season tournament.
So mind you, I don't work for the NBA anymore, but so essentially it's an opportunity, right? The best words in professional basketball are Game 7, right? It's when we know guys are going to show up, right? It's the best things about basketball, right? It's game on the line, win or go home. It is point game. There's no tomorrow. So it creates the best atmosphere for the game that we all want to see. We want to see the best players be at their best when it really matters most. And then the whole dichotomy of sports being, kind of a microcosm for life. We get to see what they're made of, how tough they are, what kind of people they are, if they're good with their teammates, even when things aren't going well. We want to see them overcome adversity and perform at the highest levels. It's the best thing ever. So the NBA wants to create more of those situations. And by doing it in the mid-season, it's like a lull, right? Yes, teams are gearing up. Yes, teams are still energetic, but you throw a tournament in there at that time, and then it boosts the competitiveness, right? Because now there's something they're playing for in the middle of the season. It breaks it up a little bit.
Right.
And then, it's a single game elimination when it gets to the quarterfinals in Las Vegas, which, in my opinion, will likely be an NBA city in the near future. So it gets a chance to establish basketball in Vegas alongside the Aces and the Ignite, which play in the G League, which are already there. Okay. So it just taking a big event, putting it in a city they really care about, and building the business.
It doesn't hurt to get $500,000 if you win the championship.
It doesn't hurt at all. Doesn't hurt at all. So.
But Jeff, I really want to thank you so much for your insightful words and your knowledge of the game of basketball, not only from the high school level, but all the way through college and the NBA. But I truly appreciate you,
my
man.
pleasure, man.
All right.
Anytime. Yeah,
and that
anytime.
will be
Thanks.
it. Thank you guys for joining us. Game Time with Carl Johnson. So we hope to see you very soon. Good night.